Monologue. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us in Franklin Covey Philippines page. And this afternoon, we're going to talk about there is no you in responsibility. Okay, so today, uh, pag-uusapan natin yung concept of blame. No? Ano nga ba yung blame sa Tagalog? Sinisisi natin, ano ba? Sino ba sinisisi natin? Sarili. Pangalawa, ibang tao. Minsan, we blame circumstances. And then at the same time, Diyos. Di ba? Yung I think the most malala is at one point or another, when we have what you call physical or adversities in life, we start blaming anything and everything ourselves, left, right, down, also and up. So this will just be a short conversation that we will be having today. And then I'll be also crowdsourcing some of the questions that I would like for you to participate in. So we will have several parts today. I'll show you a poll. And then at the same time, I'll want to be able to interact with you using the polling software. And then we are also live on Facebook. So if you have any questions there, hindi ko lang kayo makikita, but we have 3 other people at the backstage watching us today. And so they can filter and they can stream through the questions and feed them to me. No? Okay. So we have Amanda, Paolo, and Javik at the back end to just help you with your questions today. So if you have any comments or magpapa-shout out kayo, just feel free to do so. Okay? So the time is 1:33. I'm looking out my window. It's a rainy morning, and what a good way also to be able to chat with you. Kasi nga tomorrow is also a holiday. So we're not pressured to be in a hurry today. Okay? So yan, mangangamusta lang ako. And so I don't know who's online. So let me just double check. So we're live also on slido.com, and then I just like to invite you to turn on your cameras and then point it on your QR code, no, right in front. And then you will be led directly into the app. Okay? So, where are we now? Okay, we will just do a quick poll, no? So we want to find out how many are joining us today. And then, question lang, where are you joining us from? Taga saan kayo? Hindi ko makita kasi yung count kung sino yung nanonood. But I hope my friends are here. They said they would watch. Yan, somebody's watching from Antipolo. Thank you. We can just wait a little while because there's a gap. Okay. We have about 10 or 15 seconds. There. And then from the chat screen, there, Jehan Castro says hi. Ayan, yung mga kaibigan ko sa JCI. And then Richard and City are also there. And then there are 32 people who are watching right now. And then if you don't really mind, join me also in Slido kasi we're trying to participate and marry 2 different platforms together. So there are 6 people already in the room, and then we have about in my watch party I'm also seeing about 25 people. And then we have people from Muntinlupa, Quezon City, Parañaque. Okay, so this is pretty much a Metro Manila crowd. Okay? And then thank you, somebody said blame. Oh, the farthest. We have somebody from Davao. Maybe later in the chat box, in Franklin Covey, you can just tell me who you are. And then I'd like to thank you for also joining us this afternoon. It's a lazy afternoon. We have people from Parañaque, Las Piñas, Antipolo. And then for those of you who are not able to access Slido, then you can just type your answers into the comments box of Franklin Covey. I'd like to thank you for. And then there's another one that you can do. Ken Liano and Ativencha and Josh Waban from Cagayan de Oro City and Eric Yabut from Holy Apostles Senior Seminary. Uy, si Father Eric, nandyan pala. Good afternoon. So, ang dami na natin and from different places. Okay? So, type in your answers and join in kasi I want to crowdsource also some questions and answers from you. Okay, first question. How does it feel? I hope you don't mind me asking this question, no? How does it feel to blame someone? Anong pakiramdam na naninisi tayo? Anong pakiramdam niyan? Kasi I've been preparing hard for this topic kasi I haven't really thought about blaming. I know there is a dynamic to it, but iniisip ko naman, is it something that comes very natural? Okay? The feeling that comes with blaming, the act of blaming is frustration. Yes, you're right. Angry. And then there's an ease. Oh, someone said it's you feel very powerful kasi it comes with some form of uneven relationship, diba? When you're able to blame someone, I think it kind of tilts the relationship to one side. Okay. Meron ka pa bang nakita dyan sa Free. Okay, maganda to ha. Freeing oneself from guilt and then momentary relief. Halo-halo pala. And then there's a feeling of helplessness. Tama When you start thinking about it, guilt is blame is like, eto nangyari na. Wala na tayong magagawa niyan. And then suddenly, kasalanan mo kasi. Ikaw kasi. Alright? And very interesting ito when guilt is popping up. I wonder what that means. What's the context of guilt? Is it guilt na dahil sa'yo? Is it guilt na helpless ka? Is it guilt over the results of what happened? Yeah, you can have that also. Tama. Very insightful answers, napapaisip tuloy ako. Okay? Yan, thank you. How does it feel to blame someone? Now, let's turn the tables over. Teka, let me just check the chat box. From Paulo, righteousness. Aha, okay. Maganda yon. Maganda yung konsepto ng righteousness. Tama ako. 'Di ba? I'm a little bit at the higher end now. Higher level or higher ground and say, nako, mali ka. So there's a bit of judgment around right or wrong, at saka objectivity, at saka standards, di ba? Versus ano yung dapat, posible rin kaya na dito ka nagkulang. Okay. Thank you. Okay, natanong ko na yata ito. Okay. Baliktad naman. How does it feel to be blamed kung ikaw yung nakatanggap? If you're at the receiving end. Ventia says awkward sometimes. Thank you. That's from my live feed. Kung ikaw naman yung nasa receiving end nung blaming, how does that make you feel? So thank you. There's angry. That feeling of helplessness. So it's not just pala the one who's blaming, but it's also the one being blamed. No, both are in a kung Stephen Covey at saka Seven Habits parlance yan, naka-lose-lose na tayo na paradigm, no? Talo ka, talo ako, frustrated ka, frustrated ako, galit ka. Defensive ako, defensive ka rin kasi maybe the thing that we're blaming each other about affects both of us, no? And then we have WTF. Okay? And then angry, frustrated, degrading, and then hurt. Meron pang isa, confused, and then gaslighted. Kakatuwa itong gaslighting na to. Parang nasindihan ka. Literally, nasindihan ka. And if the blaming, I think the blaming incident, and the blaming incident is not something that you're prepared for, and it catches you by surprise, talagang nakakagulat 'yon, and it makes you really, really angry. Okay. And then from your watch live, magagalit, magguguluhan, and then the feeling of failure. Okay, so if I weigh the range of emotions for both parties, the feeling tends to be negative, no? Not just for the person who blames, but also for the receiver of the finger pointing. So it seems like it's something that we don't. Ang nakakatuwang itanong ngayon is, okay, if it's something that we don't really want, why is it being done? Diba? Kung pareho nating ayaw yon, bakit kaya natin ginagawa yon? Why do we end up resorting to blaming when things don't really come our way? Yeah, very exciting. If you have thoughts around it, I didn't prepare the question, but if you can send me something on the chat box. Why do we end up doing it anyway when it's not something that we feel good doing about? So either as the blamer, quote unquote, or the victim. Okay. Kasi sinabi nyo nga, karamihan dyan, dagdag from demoralization, baka it's probably human nature also. No? For us to be blaming. Okay. If we have any psychologists in the group, I know Ate Gwen Liano is watching, and I'd really value your input on this one. From a psychologist's point of view, why is there a tendency to blame when we know that either as somebody who points the finger or somebody who receives it, it's not a very good feeling anyway. Okay? Sige, antayin ko yon. Habol lang kayo mga ladies and gentlemen, ha? Okay. From Paulo, we need to make someone responsible for something or what we feel. And then May is saying grappling for explanations for someone to be accountable. Okay? Ang naisip ko naman dito, it might be a feeling na parang nalusutan ka. 'Di ba? Yung nalusutan ka. Halimbawa on the very simple things like I get this sometimes na when I go for a long travel and I'm driving an old car and PMS ko na siya to make sure na as much as possible lahat ng things na most likely masisira sa kalsada while you are away from your talyer, ma-anticipate yan. And yet, it's still magbe-breakdown ka rin. Yung sasakyan masisiraan pa rin sa gitna ng kalsada. And I get that feeling, bakit hindi ko na-anticipate yan? Diba? And sometimes I whack myself softly on the head and say, okay, ano kasi hindi mo naisip yan. Okay? Minsan nga the negative self-talk comes out, no? And it's not just probably with cars, it might be opportunities, it might be pitches, it might be sales results or some things like that. And then Stargazer Lily, out of fear, because fear is a powerful motivator also. Yeah, guilt. In my coaching classes or in my coaching conversations, yeah, guilt, you can also say that's valid. Guilt is a very powerful motivator. Uh, in fact, it's not just guilt, but also saving other people from the experience of having to go through a harrowing experience. Like for example, I would hear my client saying, "Ito yung naranasan ko nung maliit ako. As much as possible, I try to shelter my kids around it so that they don't feel the inconvenience, the discrimination, the pain, and the hurt that I've gone through." Okay, thank you. So moving on. Ito yung tanong. Makikichismis ako ng konti. Allow me to have a quick glimpse of what you were blamed for. What are you, or what were you, or what were you used to be blamed for? Anong binintang sa inyo? Nakwento ko na yata kay Paolo ito dati na meron akong in my previous in my previous jobs, I was not the preferred middle line manager. And so I recall being asked to give up my post. And then sinabi nung one level above me, when you write the resignation letter, you say you want this. Don't say I ask you to. Okay. So what are you being blamed for? Failed projects, other people's mistakes, shortcomings, not doing anything, and then failure of others, no? Kasalanan ng iba, sa'yo, sa'yo binunton. And then COVID-19. Okay, mas mahirap yan, no? To be blamed for. So what are you blamed for, or what are you blaming for? Si COVID-19 kasi, no? And a lot of people are struggling with COVID-19. It's not just the young people. I hear my dad expressing his frustration about it because he cannot travel. I also feel frustrated about it because I cannot visit him. I fear that even though I do not have symptoms, if I go anywhere, or maybe the things that I touch is contaminated, and then I give him a hug, or I go visit my mom, for example, she's in the province, and then I realize hindi ko alam I'm infected pala, no? Yeah. And then not doing something, failed project, my kids. Okay. All right. Maybe what we can do is try to get a sense of this one. Why does that happen? And I'd like to just present this from 2 points of view. No, one is the blaming process, and then the second one is if we want to be able to create a counterculture for accountability and reduce our tendency to blame, what are some of the things that we can immediately run away with? And this part, pinag-isipan ko lang. I'm going to draw my experiences from very practical solutions. I'm going to approach this from project management point of view. Okay, that's a favorite program I teach for Franklin Covey, and I do it also for Ateneo Graduate School of Business on an online setting. Okay, so I'm sharing with you some tips. No, so thank you so much for this one. Even for this one, I'm blamed for something that I am not totally in control of, but at the same time, I also realized, I asked myself, what could have been my portion, been my share in the activity or in the event itself? Why I am being blamed for this one? Okay? So yun yung tanong. Meron pa ako sa chat. Let me double check. Gaudi Lisondra, determine first the root cause of any issue. Make necessary action plans for it not to happen again. Document the mistake and share the learnings with everyone to avoid the same constraints. If it happens again, that's no longer a mistake. It is a behavior. Wow, that makes sense. I wonder if in the timing of that particular statement, is that something that you do before, during, or after the incident? Okay? But I do understand there's something that's continuing there because you document, you just monitor whether these things repeat or not. Okay? That's a good point. I'll go back to that in a little while. All right. Now, before we move to some of the points I'd like to share, how does blame affect the other areas of your life? I'd like us to reflect on that a little bit more. How does it affect me? If you keep on, sometimes the blame is not pointed at anyone, but the blame is really on me. Ako kasalanan ko. Diba? Second, how does blame affect relationships? And then if you try to look at the bigger group, how does it affect the group? And if blame is pervasive in an organization, what does it eat away against? Anong kinakain niya? Anong inaanay ng paninisi? Okay, right. It makes people unproductive. Thank you. Okay, so a little bit of trust dies, and then it makes you love less. You feel discouraged. Oh, there's transference. That's a technical term, no? Transference. Is that commiserating also with the other party? It affects morale. Next, it allows you to question yourself. So if I look at it, the spiral is downward. Diba? It's wow. So organizationally, if you were trying to replicate this personal feeling na it doesn't feel good because it eats away at the relationship, the group and the organization also is affected negatively for this one. Let me check the chat room. Causes tension and it breaks trust. Tama. We have something like 13 trust behaviors, no? And it's that. These trust behaviors, instead of making things fast, maraming dumadami. If people begin to distrust you, ang humahaba yung red tape. Imbis na mabilis yung decision, imbis na mabilis yung approvals, then people take a second guess. Is this something that will go wrong? Is this something that is going to have consequences? I have to double check again. Because blaming actually eats away trust. And then I realized also that when you start blaming people, they begin to keep quiet. They start clamming up and keeping the problems to themselves. And they will only tend to expose the problem to you when it has already gotten out of hand and it is so huge that it already has financial effects. It affects customers, it affects processes, it affects morale. And then the blaming spiral tends to continue. Okay. Ang gaganda ng mga terms nyo. Anxiety. An accounting term, which is depreciation, is now used on people. You depreciate other people. You reduce their value. And then you begin to question the relationship. Wow, thank you so much, dear friends. Ang daming inputs. And some of your answers I am not prepared and I have not anticipated. But what I'm seeing here is it affects the relationship, it eats up the trust, it destroys morale, and then at the same time, you will be more careful because you know that the next mistake might actually cost you bigger stakes. All right? What else? It ignites arguments and causes things to get blown out of proportion. All right. Ang ganda. Now let's allow me to make sense. Out of what's been shared. No, I'd like to just share with you a few slides that I prepared, and it will not cover everything, but it's supposed to help you run away with 6 tips, so that just in case you want to find out or to at least arrest the tendency to blame, there are things that you can concretely do. No? And what are my thoughts around it? It will just be 3 parts. I'll talk about blame. And then second is I'll talk about accountability as a counterculture to blame. And then the other question that I'm going to ask from you is, can you give me some tips, very, very practical tips that work for you so that we can all help each other get away or go out from, escape from this culture of blaming. Siya kasi. No? Okay. Ito yung madali, di ba? Here's this kid with a quick picture. Kick me. Yeah, so, ang question natin is, if things go wrong, who is your favorite punching bag? Di ba? Sino yung madalas mo nakikita? Sinong umiilag? Because to you, there's that psychological tape on that object, person, place, or thing that automatically presents itself. If something goes wrong, he says, kick me. Who is your punching bag? Or what is your punching bag? Yeah. I remember when I had an episode and I needed angioplasty. Wheeling into the operating room, I did look up kasi nakahiga naman ako. Yeah. And up is really the ceiling, nakahiga, nakaganon. And then I asked the Lord, bakit ganito? Why did you do this to me? And then I realized the Lord didn't do anything to me naman. In fact, He gave me a second chance on life. Kasi hindi naman ako namatay. Di ba? Then I realized, okay, who caused this on me? And then I said, okay, it must have been the chicharon or the chippy I ate. And then if there was anything or anyone or the circumstance I had to blame, I think I was responsible for it. Hindi ko masisisi yung sarili ko. In fact, ang tinawag ko nun, I actually caused it on myself. Diba? I caused it on myself. And so, understanding diets to be 80% of people's health, and the rest yung lifestyle nga and stress and lack of exercise and rest and sleep. To a certain extent, these are things that are within my control. And it took me a while to accept that it was me. You know? To a certain extent, I asked myself, how was I a part of the problem? Diba? Yon. Ayun, di ba? At saka, ang ganda ng sinabi ni Paulo, sino ang umiilag? So, hindi lang yun yung kick me. At saka, alam mo, there are people who also know that they're partly responsible for it, but they're so afraid of sticking their neck out. And so, it's probably convenient. Dahil sa kanya yan. Pag tinanong mo naman, ano yung parte mo rito? Nakakagulat kasi you also hear a good number of people saying, I am partly to blame for a failed relationship. But at the same time, I realize some people will also say, hindi ko kasalanan ito. This is all your fault. Yeah? This is all your fault. So, ano nito? Ang typical kasi sa blame is, kanino bang kasalanan to? No? So, and you notice that it's the finger directly pointed at you. And whenever we're blaming, I think the tendency is, sige, the guilty ones, sino? Okay? And largely, there are three U's here. I think it has something to do with expectations. When expectations, I'd like to propose, if you agree or disagree, just type in, kasi the whole point here is not to be right about everything. No, this is not the definitive discussion about blame, but it is a starting point for our discussions. No, first question: whose fault is it? So I think the basis there is there are things that are unclear. No, as far as expectations. Akala ko ikaw, no, and there's an underlap. I thought it was you, and then the other person says, "I thought it was you," and then we end up just like volleyball, no, looking at the ball and not doing anything. So unclear siya. And there is an expectation that's unmet. You probably agreed on an expectation and it was something that was leveled together. But hindi mo na-deliver. So clearly, sasabihin sa'yo, kasalanan mo to. Diba? And then the third one is communications, unexpected or uncommunicated expectations. I have this expectation and then I didn't communicate it to you, but it is already your obligation. Diba? Parang ano yan, kagagaling lang namin sa Cana on the weekend. And when we talked about uncommunicated expectations, we were really reminding these engaged couples that their partners are really not mind readers. Diba? So do not expect to read other people's minds and infer what it is that you think, what it is that you feel, or what it is that you expect. Phone-in question, paano mo i-approach ang boss mo pag siya naman talaga ang mali? Okay. Nauna na yung tanong, 'di ba? So kaya nga sa bakit siya nagbe-blame? I think nobody blames you at the beginning, 'di ba? From the beginning. Ang alam ko lang, ang karanasan ko palagi while I was reflecting about blame is usually towards the tail end, or blame is usually at the end of something, where there are specific results, there are specific outcomes, there are specific deliverables, or expected milestones that would have been delivered pero hindi nangyari. Okay? So, ang karanasan ko sa blame is it's a consequence when there is already something that happened. But nobody blames you at the beginning, di ba? However, if you have experiences like that, please let me know, ha? Kasi yung naisip ko talaga, mukhang wala namang biniblame at the beginning. Usually sa gitna yan, pag meron ka ng partial results, or sa huli, pag sumabog na lahat. Pero ibalik mo na lang yun, JVic, mamaya paano kino-confront yung boss, no? What is an indication that a relationship is already toxic? When there are three behaviors. In fact, that's a signal already that the relationship has gone toxic because there is an ABC already. There's accusation, there's blame, and then there's criticism. So pag nandyan na yung tatlo na yan, alam mo na yung spiral mo, pababa na siya. And so if you don't arrest that, if you don't handle feelings, if you don't sit down and talk and listen to each other, I think the likely consequence is a lose-lose relationship or a competitive relationship, no? Panalo ako, talo ka, tama ako, mali ka, and nagkakaroon tayo ng power struggles around that. Yan. And you are right. When there's blaming, information suddenly slows down, problem solving slows down, openness slows down and degrades. And then in the end, you will have two partners, two groups, leaders, colleagues, organizations with their own silos, refusing to trust or talk to one another. There's another one in the chat room. Let me double check. Okay, sabi ni Precious, Magimot, if it is unmet, given clear expectations, then the person is definitely the one to blame, unlike the other two. Okay, Tama 'yun. Even if the expectations are clear, 'di ba? And it has not yet been delivered, uh, is the person definitely the one to blame? And posible na ganun na mangyari. Pero ang tanong ko doon is, to what extent, could you have provided also? Would he have needed support so that he can deliver the expectations to you? Kasi alam mo sa atin, like culturally speaking, people will say yes. Naiintindihan mo ba ako? Naiintindihan ka ta. Di ba? Pero pag nakita mo na yung yung actual delivery, it's not understood. When photocopying was very popular pa, I had to run a workshop and last minute ito. My friends in Franklin Covey know this kasi kinuwento ko na to sa kanila about outsourced Xerox copy guys outside of the city, no? Yung diyan lang sa tapat. So sabi ko, madalian to, sabi nung kaibigan ko, can you please photocopy na lang your materials? And then, what we will do is just we will reimburse you. So I went to this photocopier and had him, for simplification, 20 copies and 20 copies of 10 pages each. Sabi ko, pakikolate. Okay? Sabi niya, okay. Kaya mo ba in the next 1 hour and a half? Sabi niya, kaya ko sir. Kasi ito lang yung ipaprioritize ko today. So ang inisip ko, that you will have 10 pages. Tama? 10 pages, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Collated according to the total number of copies that I need. No total number of people. Diba? So sabi niya, sir, balik ka in 1 hour. Tapos na to. Sabi ko, clear yung pinag-usapan natin na collated, sorted by number of participants and pages. Guess what? Page 1, pagbalik sa akin, he was so proud, na luha-luha pa. Sabi niya, sir, natapos ko, thank you. Binigay sa akin, page 1, di ba? 20 copies, stapled. Page 2, 20 copies, stapled. Tapos page 3, stapled. Sabi ko, hindi ito yung pinag-usapan natin. Tapos sabi niya, ikaw talaga, sir, hindi ka clear. That's an example, Precious, that I was talking about, na kahit, di ba, kahit clear na ang pinag-usapan natin, yung picture of success, sometimes the person interprets it totally different, no? So it can happen that he could be at fault. Naisip ko tuloy, ano ba yung ginamit ko talaga dapat? What would I have told him so that I could have gotten the results that I wanted? Now, here is something that I'd like to just propose. The time is 2:08, so I would like to have time for Q&A and also exchange of ideas from the other group also. Vensha is saying we have to correct that because it has domino effects. Now, there are 6 things that I would like to just suggest so that we can stay accountable. Okay? And this has something to do with ongoing evaluations. That when we try to reduce the possibility of blame, we have to have as often as many contact points as possible. So how to stay accountable? When there is an expectation, you sit your partner down, you sit your executive down, and then level expectations, especially in projects. Now, I'm looking at it from the point of view of projects. But I found these steps also helpful when you talk about relationships. Ano ba expectations mo? Level your expectations. If you're assigning me this job, what do you expect me to do? What does success look like for you? Can you describe that? It begins to be a little bit complicated if there are more than one stakeholder. So in that case, talk to them anyway and allow them to surface differences as far as expectations is concerned, and then raise it, no? So that you can help them sort it out, and then they can tell you exactly what their expectations are from you. Next, have it written down. If there is a need to write it down, just take note of this conversation. When did it happen? And then what was the agreed picture of expectation or picture of success to you, no? Next, what are the roles that you and I will play? What will I bring in? What do you expect me to bring in? And then it is also fair to say, okay, what can I ask your help for? Now, if this is in the case of office, where you will be asked to coordinate with people that are not directly in your line, you also ask the stakeholder for their help. Okay. May I ask for your support just in case one of the people that you're assigning for this project or for this group begins to feel that this is not a priority. Diba? So instead of you fighting with that person who is uncooperative, you seek the help of the boss to check, especially around compliance, around turnaround times, around submissions. Kasi face it, sometimes you get to work with people that are not within your line and they feel that they are not directly responsible for their outcomes to you. So it's important to also ask people who will you entrust that I work with. Second is if I have difficulty with the team as far as cooperation is concerned, may I ask for your help? That's very important kasi mas maganda yung usapan pag yung leader at leader ang nag-usap, meron kang escalation point kasi you also pass through official lines of authority. Nakakatakot lang kasi based on my experience, if you go direct to that person and there is no line relationship between the two of you, they will say, hindi kita boss. Diba? Hindi kita boss. And yet, very important that the deliverable gets done as well for you. Okay? Next, also ask, how often do you want me to update you? How often do we touch base? And how often do we actually update each other? So it can be either by email, it can be a telephone call, it can be a voice call, it can be a PowerPoint presentation, it can be a one-pager, depending on the other person so that he knows what exactly is the status of the project. And then do not hesitate to pin certain parts of your accountabilities as they are on time. O, this part on time ako. This one is in danger. Okay? This one, I'm raising a red flag around this because this one is going to cause us delay. And so, that allows us to move into step-by-step corrections. Diba? So, you're not correcting at the end. You're correcting in between. You're correcting at the beginning because you're aligning expectation. You're beginning to level off in terms of graduated results. So in other words, hindi masyadong lumalaki yung deviations, nagko-corrections na tayo. Okay? And then those are documented, no? In fact, sinasabi nila, once na nag-agree na kayo on a specific picture of success, every time there is a request for a variation, you should inform the others about the changes so that they can decide whether it gets incorporated or not. And then the third one, this one is a little bit more cerebral kasi based on my assumption that blaming tends to happen if there is already a result. What you really want to do is make people, engage people as often as you can towards getting the results. If there are deviations, handle the deviations. But of course, I think the big part of it is the drama. No, if we can handle emotions later on better and reduce the drama by always communicating. What I'm trying to say here is makipag-usap kayo as often as you can so that you can talk about corrections. And then when you get good results, do not forget to celebrate. No? So how do we try to distinguish the difference between blaming and accountability? So this one is just a 6-step process that project management will tell you. In fact, if you read through Project Management Institute guidelines, these are actually suggestions, no, that actually work not just in projects but in relationships as well. Here's a small table that I got from Marilyn Paul, the systems thinker. And she tries to put blame and accountability side by side against each other. And she looks at 4 areas. No? When you try to take a look at level of problem analysis, blame talks about let's find out who makes the mistake and point the fingers at him. But accountability looks at the system. It's the behavior, it's the process of doing things. Is there anything in our structure that increases the likelihood of error and at the same time reduces our chances of success. So you can look at the individual and make it a you message, pagkatao niya yan. Or you can look at it as a leader and say, okay, is there anything that we're doing that prevents us from actually succeeding? And so here, this is not a you and I effort. You are being seen now as collaborative. This is not a problem that the other individual is worried about. This is also systemic. So if it affects him, it will also affect me. Number two, what is the focus? Blaming tends to focus on the person. We're looking for a scapegoat. Sino siya? Anong ginawa niya? Anong ginawa niyang mali? Tapos sasabihin mo, dapat hindi mo ginawa yon. But on the other side, we have another option. You can look at it as solving the problem. And this one is basic problem solving, ladies and gentlemen. Anong nangyari? Okay? We're not looking at the character of the person. We're looking at the results. And then we're trying to look at the causes why that particular set of results came out. So that's your problem solving technique, no? So hinahanap natin yung root cause analysis. Next, what is the intention? The intention in blame is to actually mete out punishments for individuals and to say it is your fault and I will make you pay. Pagbabayarin kita. But accountability, on the other hand, talks about performance. Let's see what we need to do to get the results that we want. Okay, so obviously, this is what we did and that's what happened. What could be another way of looking at things so that we get a different set of results? Diba? Si physicist to. Sino nga yung physicist natin? E is equal to mc squared. Sabi niya, you cannot solve a problem in the same mindset that you created it. And so we have to rethink our patterns to be able to come up with a different set of results. Next one, which is the last one. If we're thinking about outcomes, when our tendency is to start blaming each other, then you have what you call cover-ups. Magtatakipan na yan. And people will say, oh, palitan tayo ha. Pag sumabit ako, I'll cover your back. Pag ako naman yung sumabit, magtulungan tayo dito, padre. Okay? So, I won't reveal my mistakes because it is not worth it to stick my neck out and take risks. However, if you're looking at accountability, okay, ang tawag nito is bilang ka. No? Binilang kita. You are accountable. I hold you accountable because you are part of a whole. Hindi ka mag-isa. Tama? Hindi mo ginawa yung parte mo, I cannot do everything completely. And so it's important that we help each other because if you do my part and I do my part, we complete the task together. So this one, as far as outcomes are concerned, this one is really more systems thinking and growth mentality. No? So here we talk about openness and learning. I want to talk about this mistake so we can do a better job next time. Okay? So we can do a better job next time. So because I had this heart incident at home, what happens? We started eating right. Our food choices, yes, we still have junk food every now and then. But what we did was to save the portions. Next, we don't stress over little things anymore in the household. Because I think even with this lockdown, our total number of square meters has been totally reduced. Ang hirap ng kumilos pag ang kalaban mo kasama mo na sa bahay. So instead of putting in the culture of blame, I think a good portion of it is how do I make your life easy? And when you do that and you become you-centered, you become life-giving, you become more considerate and compassionate during the COVID-19, it also makes the other person respond positively to you. Okay? Sige. I'd like to just stop here. We have about mga 10 minutes. May I just ask a question from you? What are your tips that will help prevent blame from taking place? So this one is a six-step process, very typical for project management. But I use that in a lot of conversations, not just with friends, with loved ones, with family members, and also with colleagues at work. So, we have about 10 minutes of Q&A time. Ang dami nyo na actually na participate. Ang hinihingi ko na lang sa inyo, paano nyo piniprevent yung blame? Oh, I like this one. Remember, I always have a choice. Thank you. And maybe you can put in your name so that I can call you by name na. So before you type in your message, just type in your name so that I can also give you a shout out. And I'd like to thank you for your effort. Sige, what are some of the tips that you can share with the group so that we can prevent blame? Ang dami. I'm so happy. Thank you, Oscar, Kenneth. Don is watching. Kachor from Cagayan de Oro. AVP Donna. Shani. Rox Rojas. Edeline. Dr. Tina, thank you. Precious. My wife Ellen is here. Josh, thank you. Doreen from USTP. Messiah Reyes. My colleague in education. And Tita Vicky is here. Shani from Iloilo. And then Dickel from Ateneo Grade School. Dec from Inquirer. Our cousin-in-law, Agi, is here. And then Sunny Garcia is also here. Good morning, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. Guards. Open communication. Thank you. Count 1 to 10. Take a deep breath. Thank you. Clear objectives and expectations. Very good. From Eileen, communicate your needs and expectations. Remember, your spouse, your partner, your business partner is not a mind reader. So it helps if you level the expectations pag-usapan nyo. Jason Principe, Alfred's Angels is here. Hannah from Davao. Jason Inlayo, sir, kamusta? Aking inaanak. Glindo, our best friend from Herbalife. Jerry, Antonio Akut. Oy, Sir AA. Kamusta, sir? Okay, as Dr. Tina said, if you send emails or SMS and they don't respond, di ba? That can be a trigger point. Reflecting and on the old saying, put yourself in another person's shoes. Yeah, tama. I think COVID-19 has allowed us to learn to simplify. And it also allowed us to understand each other's trigger points. And what's good about it is that's something that you can rub on people and trigger them more, or that's something that you can tread lightly and take care of so that you also are not able to hurt each other's feelings. No? Life is precious. Paulo, total number of square meters has reduced. Oo. Divide mo yung total number of people in the house versus total number of square meters. Yun na yung natira. Diba? Yun yung average mo. And then if you look at dati, hindi tayo nagkikita. Kasi we have different areas to cover, but now it's not that. Arnold Lansangan. Arnold from Pampanga High School. Okay. Paulo, assume good intent from the other versus ascribing negative intent or gaps in character. Pinangunahan mo na. In other words, I teach this in my communication classes. The conversation has already failed if you think you're doing the conversation in your head when it actually hasn't even begun. Patay na yon. Wala na tayong pinag-usapan. So yung pag-uusap nyo, if your mind has already been made up, it's not gonna happen anymore. Always be the better person. If blaming won't help resolve problems, then why do it? Kasi nga, it's easy, no? It's easy. At saka, it's like for those plantitos, I realized that I asked a friend, why is your leaf so shiny? Yun pala, every day, they wipe it. No? And the more you wipe your leaves, the cleaner they become and the healthier the plant becomes. Okay? And then this one, good question. What is your contribution to the problem? Ano ang ambag mo dyan? Kasi hindi naman siya, kung mag-isa lang siyang nag-execute, wala. But the fact that you're blaming the other person means that perhaps you are also invested in that kind of a result. So ang tanong, ano ang papel mo doon? Ano dapat ang ginawa mo? Meron ba or wala? Ang tanong doon is ano ang ambag. Okay. Next, know when to disengage when it is emotionally, mentally unhealthy for you already. Oo naman. 'Di ba? Never say anything that will not stand the test of the last words you say to that person. Kasi nga, hindi mo alam. Nagbitaw ka ng masama. Tapos bukas, wala na siya. 'Di ba? So, hindi na niya dala-dala yon. Ikaw yung buhay. Ikaw ngayon ang magdadala nung krus, okay, na papasanin mo dahil we are also careless with our words. Next, speak more of solutions to the problem than dwelling on the problem. I agree. Be solution focused, and the reason why we want to communicate as often as we can is that we actually want to make sure that we are still on the level as far as our understanding and as far as our steps are concerned. Set aside your ego. I agree. Sometimes that's not easy to set aside. I agree. It takes a lot of humility to say I was wrong. I'm sorry. And what can I do to correct this so that it won't happen again? And then the second one, the one on top is don't sweat the small stuff. Mikey Mora is also watching, and Florian Olarita. Okay. Our friends from JCI and Cagayan de Oro City. Thank you. Meron pa ba? We still have about 3 minutes more for this one, ladies and gentlemen. If you can type in, I ask myself, what is it that I want to come out of this conversation? Maganda yon. Maganda yon. And it is not just something that you can ask of yourself, but it is also a good question will mean that if you and I are working on this together, what will make this project meaningful for you? Why is this important for you? What outcome do you want to get out of this conversation? Kasi, then we skirt the drama na. We accept a bit of emotionality around our conversations. Kasi nga, dialogue mo na yan before discussion. Pero, knowing that this is what the person wants to go, this is where he wants to go. Ang tanong ba noon is that the same direction that he wants to go to? Kung pareho, okay, then let's not make it easy. Let's not make it difficult for each other to connect and to solve problems together. Okay? Meron pa ba? Comments from our directors at the back. Paulo, kamusta ka na? O JVic, Amanda, meron pa bang comments dyan na hindi natin nadaanan? Did we miss any of the comments for today? And I'm hoping that we were able to help you today, no? I'm hoping that we were able to help you today. If I think about programs that Franklin Covey is offering for this one, 7 Habits will cover this one. And blame is not it's not a main topic, but it's really taking responsibility. I think as far as leadership is concerned, where else can we look at it? Trust. It's actually being able to talk with credibility. It's also we're also talking about character. No, trust is not just a business case, but it is also a case that it is a behavior. It is an investment that also will make us credible. No, not just be able to deliver results. And then clearly, the one that I showed you was also based on Covey Principles and Project Management Institute. There's project management there. Okay, at least there are 3 programs. There's a question. What do you do if the person consistently blames or refuses to see their own contribution in the situation? Okay. Persistent blame. There's some part of the situation you can control. Ang suggestion ko, mag-usap kayo. And ang tanong lang doon is the behavior. No? I noticed that every time there's a shortage in the results of the project, you tend to pin me as the culprit for this one. Okay. Is there anything that I missed? Was there anything in our conversations that that always think that I'm the one making it difficult or I'm not the one delivering my part? Try to take a look at this one. Is there anything that we can do? I don't know the relationship that you have with the person. It's very difficult if the other person persistently blames you but is also not willing to listen to you. Okay. So I suppose look for people who can bridge the gap between the two of you. Number 3, look for people who can listen objectively. And if it is something that that deals with the office, I think this is something that your leaders can help you with, provided they are also predisposed to listening and solving the problem instead of blaming as the easy culprit. No. Other than those two, I don't see any other hanging comments in FB. Okay. Leave questions so that we can get back to them at the chat room because it's 2:32. I think we also don't want to unnecessarily keep everyone because I know this is a busy day for you. This is also working time. So we'd like to thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for the contributions, and thank you so much to my friends for finding the time to skip a bit of work to listen to us. I hope we were able to help you be more productive during this pandemic season. Thank you so much. Okay. So there. Good afternoon, everyone.